Aarhus, Denmark, leg 4 for the SailGP season, and halfway through the calendar. Well, Aarhus has gained a little bit of a reputation for being a light weather venue, but not for this one. It was gusty, shifty, puffy, really hard work. The Danes went for their first swim. Paul Campbell-James on the American boat broke a leg, and the Spanish broke a daggerboard. And it was the broken daggerboard that became the talking point, partly because initially we thought that they'd broken it by hitting the mark they were trying to round in a practice session. But actually, on closer inspection, that wasn't the case. Now, one of the features of these F-50 cats is that their data gets streamed back to the shore in bucket loads. And so there's an awful lot of analysis that goes on, and within a few hours, it became clear, at least to the techie experts, what had happened. It seems that, put simply, the board was overloaded, but it was a bit more complicated than that. It turns out that the failure was caused by overloading of the daggerboard, but in the opposite direction to the way that it's normally loaded. That is to say that normally the board would be loaded in such a way as to lift the boat out of the water, but this board failed by the end being broken down and overloaded that way. And the reason it happened? There was too much angle of attack on the board as it was lowered into the water. Normally that's controlled by the computers, but in this particular case I'm led to believe that it wasn't. And so while the board shot down into the water, it was generating far too much load, pulling the boat down. It overloaded, broke, and then consequently the boat capsized. As you can see in the video, it's a pretty dramatic failure, and one that will have worried a lot of the designers and engineers. But I just wonder if it says something else about this fleet too, and that is how fast the teams are learning how to push these boats hard, and how hard it is for the designers and the technicians to keep up with them. Anyway, it turned out to be an absolutely fascinating event. The breeze didn't stay all the way through, but as we saw in Plymouth, you don't need an awful lot of wind to make for exciting racing, and this had plenty of that.
The 2021 SailGP season has seen plenty of drama, and for the Rockwool Denmark Sail Grand Prix, there was more in store. Before the racing had even started, the pressure was on. The breeze was up, gusty, shifty, tripping teams up. Aarhus was throwing down the gauntlet. Forged in the fires of the Viking Age, Aarhus in Denmark is no stranger to fierce battles. On a peninsula shackled by the North Sea, a crucial mid-season duel will unfold. Fight your foes in the field, nor be burnt in your house. The home team has a lot to prove. Ainsley returns to claim his throne. Slingsby undoubtedly come out fighting. It's all to play for at the Rockwool Denmark SailGP. But as teams prepared for 2 days of racing, everyone had to get to grips with a weather hurdle first. The wind arrived in Aarhus early, which meant plenty of thrills and spills in practice. On Tuesday, Denmark experienced their first capsize. But it was Wild Wednesday, and in the first practice race, where it really got fruity.
Benassi, look at the speed, 98 kilometers an hour as he bore away at Mark 1 there. That's nearly 53 knots in old money, but he's almost lost control of the boat.
As the British were setting new records, the Spanish were racing on the edge.
And the Spanish are in the same gust as the British, but they can't control it. They fall out of the sky and crash into the water.
Very windy in Denmark today.
Next, Japan joined the carnage.
Big breeze on the Japanese boat now, pushing inside. Whoa, they've lost it. They've got too high, turned up into the breeze, out of control on board.
It was clear that the risk of a capsize was always there, but that wasn't all. USA wing trimmer Paul Campbell-James was forced out with a broken leg. And it was a broken daggerboard that saw the Spanish team pull out of day one. Meanwhile, at the top of the leaderboard, two sailing world giants were about to lock horns. Such seems to be the disposition of man that whatever makes a distinction produces rivalry. and none so much as on SailGP, where titans clash. The GOAT, the greatest of all time. Pedigree on the Olympic and international stage brings with it a glossy expectation. Defending his turf as the current SailGP champion, a world-class Olympic sailor in his own right. With insecurity at the heart of every great rivalry, Sydney 2020 set the stage for a dogfight.
Ben definitely kicked our ass in front of all our friends and family.
Round 1, Ainsley. Bermuda, a chance to settle the score, and despite a second-place finish, Slingsby closes the event on the back foot. Round 2, Ainsley. A glimmer of hope for the Antipodean driver as Ainsley announces a 2-race withdrawal for Italy and the Great Britain events. Taranto, a hydraulic failure triggers a disappointing few races for the Aussie boat. And then, redemption in Plymouth saw Slingsby wipe the floor with the rest of the fleet to even the score, finally catching up to tie on points with the British boat. Now in Denmark, Ben is back and the gloves are off. Round 3. Behind the two frontrunners and with 3 events now completed, the form guide was taking shape.
Just 1 point behind the joint leaders, Billy Bessel's French team are the big improvers of Season 2. Maybe surprisingly, given the chat on board is not always harmonious.
What are you talking about? Nothing.
Analysts question the way they sail downwind, where they consistently lose places. So let's keep an eye on that this week. A further 2 points back at Jimmy Spittle's Team USA. It's not been plain sailing, with bad luck in Bermuda and bad luck in Taranto. In Plymouth, they look like winners.
And it looks to be perfect starting for Jimmy Spithill and Team USA.
But after a perfect start in the final, they lacked boat speed and finished last. It's been a roller coaster for Nathan Outridge's Team Japan. 7th in Bermuda, 1st in Taranto and 6th in Plymouth. One of the pre-season favourites, they're now SailGP's yo-yo team, so who knows what to expect in Aarhus. Lying in 6th are Spain, a 4th, a 2nd and the overall leaders until the Plymouth disaster.
Spain, you have been black flagged from the race.
Rubbish!
Driver Phil Robertson is under the cosh, so will he be thinking about changing his aggressive style? Speaking of pressure, the Danish driver Nikolaj Sehested says he's not feeling the heat despite poor results and the added expectations of sailing in home waters. But a capsize in training might indicate otherwise. And last but surely not least, the wooden spoon sits with America's cup holders, New Zealand. After missing Plymouth at the Tokyo Olympics, 4 of the regular crew get back on board, led by newly crowned silver medalist Pete Burling. Will we see the rise of this hugely talented team?
So after 3 events, it could not be much closer. Just 5 points separate top to bottom, and the fact that we have had 3 winners from 3 events supports the fact that any of the 8 teams could be the overall winner. Here in Aarhus, we should see more consistency as all crews are back to full strength after the Olympic Games.
Start line here will be crucial. The positions found at the gun will define Mark 1, and that sets up your race. After the bear away here, you need to be right on top of the strategy, already making decisions as you approach gate 2. The boats can turn left and right at the gate here, and you will see the crews looking for wind across the other sides of the course. Gate 3, bearing away from the wind again. Very, very tricky here in Aarhus. A lot of opportunity for changes. Final dash downwind, chance to overtake those boats in front as we come on the final upwind leg, and the battle for points will go right down to the wire, with gusts making all the difference at the top of the course. We see here we've got an average wind speed, but it really is an average, very gusty, tricky race course.
The boats were set up, the teams prepared, and the crowds were out in force. It was time to race as the fleet bore down on the first start in Aarhus.
Next right.
It's Ben Ainsley at the pin end of the line. Looks like he's timed this well. Already on the foils, it's the Kiwis and Burling in the middle of the line. Clear start there. It's Burling already on the foils. Can Ainsley pop the boat up? Burling and Spithill break the line fast, and Seherstedt comes diving through the middle. The Danish crew blast towards mark number 1.
And how about Denmark? What a start. But it's the Kiwis topping up at over 72 kilometers an hour.
First at mark 1 here in Aarhus, bearing away downwind. Great from Burling. Burling doing a good job, but a slight mistake. The hull touches down, and Seherstedt's ready to grab the opportunity.
Denmark SailGP, presented by Rockwell, has the lead at gate 2. Guys, this is something we haven't seen so far during season 2.
It's going to come down to this last tack. Australia coming through underneath Japan. Japan will have to keep clear. Can he keep clear of Slingsby? Where has Slingsby come from? He's found some breeze, and it's Ainsley in a big gust of wind at the top. One more tack to do for Ainsley. These boats have completed the tack. It's going to come down to this final tack in here. Can Ainsley stick it? Here he goes. Needs to stay on the foil. Whoa! He's fought the wing too late. Oh, Parkinson. No, they fluff the tack. It's all about the re-acceleration here, the tack under pressure.
And how about this? The Danes are going to come back from behind. They were in 4th place and falling back. And as they come to the line in light breeze, it will be Denmark claiming the win in front of the home crowd.
Slingsby through at the finish to 2nd and on the line. Oh, I can't call it. I think it's Burling in 3rd. Oh, it came down to 1 tack, the money tack, and they missed it.
That's how we do it. What a finish, holy moly.
A great first win of the season for the home team, Denmark. But could they do it again?
4 seconds to go. They're blasting in. It's Spithill and Slingsby blasting down towards mark number 1. 3 boats with a perfect start. Can Spithill and his US crew hang on in there? Slingsby seems to have found a rocket pack as he blasts towards mark number 1.
It's the Americans on the inside, the Australians on the outside, a little bit faster as they make the turn here onto leg number 2.
It's going to be tight as we come into gate 2. Look at the speed of Billy Basson and the French crew.
At gate 2, France with the lead. The USA recovers nicely on that downward leg to get into 2nd place, but it is France and Billy Basson who have taken over the lead here as they head back onto leg 3. Top of the course, the Americans and the French.
They're going to get to the boundary here, and Jimmy Spithill will be able to tack.
Another close call.
Tight tack at the top there. The French needed to keep clear.
Penalty France not giving room at a boundary.
All about the execution of this next tack. Outridge has the right of way on the inside over Slingsby, but it's all about how good your tack is here. Jimmy Spithill, can you stay on the foils? Nathan Outridge, can you stay on the foils? Good tack from the USA. Oh, a bit late for the Japanese for me there. Not their best tack. Tom Slingsby on the inside and on the foils. He's going to sneak through and take 2nd again.
And in race number 2, it's going to be Team USA that gets the win here in Denmark as Jimmy Spithill and company rebound from a 7th place to take a 1st.
Oh, solid, fellas. Wasn't the prettiest.
It's quite a difficult racetrack. It really is a bit of a minefield, and I think whether in 1st or last, everyone's got a bit of an opportunity at the moment. So yeah, it makes for exciting racing.
The role of the driver on the F50 is so much more than just steering the boat. So there's lots of different buttons and switches and twist grips and foot buttons that we have to activate when we're sailing the boat. You know, there's a lot of multitasking happening as you're driving.
But I would say it's probably only 10% of your focus is going into doing these functions. 90% of the focus is actually positioning the boat correct compared to the fleet and the marks and the course.
If you look at the data, then you can see that there are constant adjustments happening to keep the boat flying. So if you can take that information in and use it for a competitive advantage, it's really key.
It's very important that we don't make any mistakes. When you're sailing these boats at 50 knots, if you press the wrong button at the wrong time, it can be catastrophic. It can be capsize, it can be boat damage, and worst case injuries in the people.
I think for the average person, when you drive a boat like the F50, it's like going very, very fast in a car, and any little movement has a big consequence. I think what's important is you always have to try and anticipate and be a step or 2 ahead, because if you get caught behind in the decision making, it's a lot like an avalanche. Serious damage, serious injury, people can get hurt, so there's a lot at risk.
With just seconds to go in race 3 here in Aarhus, who's got it right?
Slingsby's foiling at the top of the line. Have they judged it right? Looks like a gap's going to open at the bottom of the line for Ainsley. How's your timing, Ben? It's going to be tight as we turn down. Burling turns down. 2-1. Look for the line to go wide. What a start from Ainsley through the bottom of the line there. And it's Ainsley and Burling blasting to mark number 1. Time and distance spot on from those two crews.
Coming up at gate number 2, it'll be Great Britain. Remember, they're looking for a big performance here after a 4th and a 5th in the first 2 races. Look how tight it is across the board, and now they have to negotiate this heavy crowd. Lots of traffic here at the top of the course.
It's tight between the French and the Kiwis. The French must keep clear. Oh, there's surely a protest there. Big moment. The French had to keep clear. It's going to be interesting what the umpires make of that, but they're off the foils on both those boats.
It's the umpires at New Zealand versus France. That was a penalty on France, and penalty is cleared.
And race 3 goes the way of the Brits as Ben Ainsley guides them to a victory in the 3rd and final race here in Aarhus.
Nice one, guys. Yeah, full on. Helps when you get out in front. Makes life a bit easier.
3 races, 3 different winners. The fight for the final was going to be tough and would now start with a detailed evening debrief. But for the Spanish, the night would feel even longer and involve plenty of power tools. While the Spanish had been forced out of day 1, the race had been full on for the short team.
Yeah, so we've managed to get the Spanish boat back in the tent now and take the time to assess the damage. We've got a port hull repair going on near the bow. We've got some starboard wet box area, some structural damage. We've lost all the aft fairing frames, we've broken the steering tubes, and we've broken the starboard daggerboard. The biggest problem that we've got is probably the structural integrity under the starboard hull. So we've had that NDT'd and we're waiting for a report back so we can make a plan on a fix for the repair so we can get the boat sailing tomorrow. Yeah, I think it will be a push tonight to get the boat out sailing tomorrow for sure. But we just need to step through the process, and I think if we don't come up with any major obstacles and we can sort the structure around the starboard wet box area, I think there's no problem to get this boat sailing tomorrow.
Going into day 2, Australia led. Great Britain were 2nd and the USA 3rd. As it stood, these 3 would go through to the final race. But with super light winds in store and the crew list now reduced to just 3, all bets were off. The pressure was on, but the wind had dropped. Most were finding it hard to read the conditions, but Nathan Outridge's team seemed to have the answer. Winning the start counted for nothing. Finding the breeze was everything.
Yeah, it was very light, as everyone saw. Who knows if we can repeat that again now. It's a bit of a lottery out here, but we'll take that one. We don't mind sailing with 3 people. Obviously, a lot of multitasking going on. It's nice to see we're, on the edge of the top 3 now, and it'd be really good to make the final today.
He could, and he did. Once again, the start had little influence on the result. Reading the conditions and second-guessing the wind was the key.
Oh, man. I think that's enough to get in. Okay, pretty sure that gets us in.
After race 5, Japan had another win on the scoreboard and were now heading to the final race. But alongside the racing afloat, there is another championship running behind the scenes. The Impact League has a set of social and environmental sustainability criteria, from pioneering new technologies, focusing on clean energy solutions, and removing all single-use plastics, to diversity and inclusion, and using the team's voice for good. Each team is audited and awarded points based on its fulfillment of these criteria.
For us, the New Zealand team, it's nice to be leading the Impact League after 3 events. It's something we've put a lot of work into. It was important for us as a team, for Pete and I, obviously with Live Ocean, to use what we're doing in sport to share the message of ocean restoration and protection with the world as we sort of race around the world. And now with the Impact League, that just gives us an even better platform to do it in.
Day 2 had seen teams facing winds at the bottom of the scale, but Aarhus had also been the testing ground for the new wings that will address this issue later in the season.
We're testing the 29-metre wing at the moment. which is the biggest of the SailGP wings. We need it in the light winds, so when there's not enough wind to get the boats foiling, having that extra height and area will allow us to get out of the water and foiling and racing.
Such light winds as they try and find a way to Mark 1, Todd.
Is that a possible world record for the slowest jibe we've ever seen in SailGP?
There's basically 2 stages in the testing process. The first is in the shed, and then the second will be on the water during some sea trials.
Pretty exciting day for all. Behind me, the 29-metre wing into our platform. You can see it's a Spanish wing, and that's just got the fibre optic cables in there so we can see what's going on and the engineers and designers can keep track of it, and it's going into the US platform. That's just a great thing for the sport because it allows us to continue foiling, continue racing, irrespective of what the wing conditions are.
Well, she's big and she's powerful. She's still in the sky, so that's a good thing. And it's really choppy out here today, so a bit more load than what we're used to. But
it makes manoeuvring harder, but actually getting up and going is a little bit easier. It feels a lot like we're driving a truck when we've been driving a race car before. And yeah, it's definitely very valuable testing.
Back to the final showdown. 3 of the biggest names in sailing with CVs to match were about to go head-to-head.
Here we go. We're turning down here. There we go. The line goes white, and it's Australia across the line first. Great start from Slingsby. Ainsley a little bit late at the bottom of the line, but as we say, it's all about finding the wind. And look, top of the screen, dark patch of wind coming down. Who's going to find it first?
Kinley Fowler there on the front handles. He's normally a grinder facing aft. He's switched round, he's trimming the jib, he's grinding the wing in. And we know that Tom Slingsby's at the back of the boat, flying the boat.
Here they come at mark number 1. It's Australia out in front, Japan in second, Great Britain sitting in third. In the final race here at the Rockwool Denmark Sail Grand Prix. Can the Australians back up what they did in Plymouth where they got the win? Japan, winners in Taranto, Italy, looking for their second on the season. And Great Britain started the season off with a win in Bermuda. Can they repeat that performance?
First to jibe there is Slingsby, but we know Japan's going to be going with him, trying to get on top of his wind here. Who can get on the foil first? Slingsby's done it, 38 kilometres now. Great jibe from the Australians, and it's all on now. Drag race down to gate 2.
This would be huge if Tom Slingsby could get the win. He's had a great battle with Ben Ainsley, and right now he sits in first place at gate number 2. So looking to make it 2 wins in a row. Remember, they won the event back in July in Plymouth. So it's Japan that get to the zone first. Now they own the mark, and the British have to keep clear. This is going to be close.
This will be crucial now. Japan are splitting to the other side of the course. Can they find better wind than Tom Slingsby ahead?
This is the umpire's penalty GBR relative to Japan. Penalty GBR relative to Japan. Not giving room at the mark, not giving room at the mark.
That's a big, big call by the umpire.
How much room do they want? That is such a call.
It's a big call. Slightly industrial from Ben there, but I intend to agree. That was a harsh call, really. Japan is entitled to tack inside, but it never looked like they wanted to me.
This could be the race in a nutshell. This will have to put the British behind the Japanese, who are miles behind right now, giving free rein to the Australians to sail away.
That's just a ridiculous call.
All this does is let the Australians sail free and clear and go on and win this regatta. That one penalty call has decided this series.
Are they going to take their penalty or what? Hey Craig, are they going to take their penalty? Shut up, Nathan. Mate, that's a call. We're going to try and get behind you. Stop moaning.
Ben Ainsley is certainly not happy with Nathan. Here it is one more time. Do you guys agree with the call?
By the rules, I agree with the call. The spirit of the decision, I'm not entirely sure Outridge was ever going to try and turn in there, and I think he's played a professional move. It's a good move within the rules, but it's a big, big penalty to take for that. Let's get back to Australia. He's up and foiling, and this really handed the race here to Tom Slingsby.
Nice and calm on board Australia SailGP as they have got it down to just really maybe one more maneuver for the victory. Remember, they were the winners in Plymouth back in July, and when it counted most, the Australians get it done and get the win. Congratulations, Australia SailGP for the victory in Aarhus. Denmark's crown prince, Frederick, an accomplished sailor in his own right there to make the presentation, and it's all celebration for the green and gold.
A very stressful day out there. There's really light winds, happily said. I've been copying Nathan Outridge and his Japanese team. In the past, they've copied us in our upwind speed and our heavy air sailing. And in light airs, they're a step above us. And so we look at all their data. You can't hide anything, so we can figure out why they're going quicker. We've got a long way to go, but fortunately the last race went our way. Behind us, there was a lot of argy-bargy going on, and we just were able to sail away.
So Ben ended up a long way in front of us when the penalty came on. It took a long time for him to kill it, and as we all heard, he wasn't very happy about it.
So it was entertaining for us, but at the same time it was quite stressful because we were trying to figure out what the change of course was, and we couldn't hear on the radio because Ben was yelling at the umpires.
If he was in our position, he would have done the same thing, and then we would have been in his position really struggling to clear the penalties. So.
He might think that. I don't know, until you're in that position, you don't know. I mean, I don't think we've been in that position too many times.
I would not have wanted to be in the umpire's position on that call.
He plays the rules really well. He's very smart with that, Nathan. He's quite savvy, and yeah, I'll do the same thing if I'm honest. And I think Ben would do the same thing to us.
I think the moral of the story is don't be an umpire and be a sailor.
It is what it is. I'm not going to moan about it anymore. Said my piece, and time to put it behind us and move on to the next event.
It's not often you get to beat Ben Ainsley on a racetrack. It's not easy. He's a legend, and he is the greatest of all time.
The Australians had a great race, so we can't try and take that away from them. They deserve the victory.
At the halfway point in the SailGP season, the tension was building. Tempers had frayed as teams argued over each point. Going into the next event in Saint-Tropez, France, the pressure is only going one way.